Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging straight into the heart of Wally Lamb's I Know This Much Is True, really focusing on these excerpts you've shared with us.
That's right.
Our mission, really, is to navigate the intensely intertwined lives of these twin brothers, Dominic and Thomas Tempesta. We want to pull out the key insights, into their complex relationship.
Yeah, and it's set against this backdrop of, well, really tough personal struggles and this deep, often kind of burdensome family history.
Exactly. So let's talk about the sources.
Well, what you've given us are these really potent snapshots, aren't they? We get Dominic's immediate reactions, often quite charged with anger and guilt after Thomas's actions.
Right.
And we get these glimpses into their shared childhood, which was, well, clearly marked by difficulties. And then we see Dominic today, trying to make sense of it all, support his brother.
While also grappling with his own identity, which is just so tied up with Thomas.
Precisely. It's
Yep.
intrinsically linked.
And these aren't gentle strolls down memory lane, are they? The excerpts really throw us into these moments of crisis, times of deep reflection.
Yeah, and those fragile, sometimes fumbling attempts at connection.
It's a raw and intimate look at how family shapes us, the profound impact of mental illness, and that fundamental human search for meaning, really.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where should we start?
I think a natural starting point is the immediate aftermath of Thomas's self-harm. The excerpts kick off with Dominic's very strong reaction.
Yeah.
A mix of anger, guilt, and this powerful need to just shield himself from the inevitable media attention.
Right, that image of him standing there, arms crossed, refusing Mrs. Fenwick's coat.
Exactly. That simple physical gesture, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the emotional barriers he's putting up straight away.
It tells you something key about Dominic right off the bat. This deep aversion to vulnerability.
Absolutely. He's just been hit with this shocking event.
And he's channel flipping through Desert Shield updates. This huge global conflict is unfolding, while his own internal world has just completely imploded.
Yeah, the contrast is really stark. It highlights how intensely personal turmoil can just overshadow everything else, even major world events.
He just wants it all to stop, doesn't he? This intrusion into his, well, already fractured life.
Yeah.
And within that immediate crisis, we get these telling glimpses into their shared past, moments that have clearly, laid the groundwork for their present dynamic.
Like their mother's simple request for a hot fudge sundae.
Yes, such a small thing, isn't it? A yearning for just a moment of simple connection.
And Dominic's reaction is so dismissive, almost contemptuous.
It's revealing. That seemingly minor moment, it kind of encapsulates a core tension. The mother's yearning for intimacy just constantly being rebuffed by Dominic's emotional guardedness.
It's a pattern, definitely. It suggests this ongoing emotional distance, like he's allergic to any display of sentimentality.
Or vulnerability, yeah.
And then there's that newspaper clipping tucked away in Ma's scrapbook, their birth announcement.
Oh, right. Born just 6 minutes apart, but in 2 different years.
It's this bizarre detail that immediately highlights their unique twin identity right from the very start.
And the fact that their father isn't even mentioned.
That absence just looms large, doesn't it? What impact do you think that missing figure has had?
Well, precisely. That absence becomes this silent but really powerful presence throughout their lives, and then their mother's story about being bullied.
And Dominic's completely unsympathetic response, wanting her to get to the point.
It just reinforces this pattern of emotional detachment again. His focus shifts immediately to his new glasses.
This symbol of a clearer physical reality.
Yet he remains totally disconnected emotionally from his own mother's pain. It's like he's choosing to sharpen one sense while deliberately dulling another.
It's like he's choosing physical clarity over emotional vision. And even Ma's photo collection with that picture of Billy Covington.
Yeah, that feels significant in retrospect. It definitely foreshadows the impact of loss on her later.
And by extension on her sons.
Definitely. Now, as we move into the present crisis, we see Dominic grappling with all these external forces while trying to manage the fallout from Thomas.
His interactions with Nadra Frank are interesting there regarding the grandfather's manuscript.
They really are telling.
Okay, so he hires her to translate this manuscript, presumably hoping to uncover some family history, right? Maybe find answers about their father.
Exactly. But his interactions with her are just fraught with this anxiety about control, about how his family's story will be interpreted.
He's worried about her abbreviations and interpretations, her sourpuss way of seeing the world.
Yeah. This need to control the narrative of his family history is happening at the exact same time he gets news of his mother's worsening condition.
Wow, it's like he's trying to anchor himself in the past just as his present is completely crumbling.
hmm And then their mother passes away, and Thomas's reaction is, well, unexpected.
It really is. Not the dramatic outburst Dominic anticipates at all.
No, instead, it's these very specific, almost childlike questions about her suffering and wanting his collage back. The God equals loved one.
What's fascinating there is the contrast. Dominic feels this need to be there for Thomas despite everything.
That enduring twin
And
bond.
Thomas's reaction is so subdued, yet kind of poignant. Maybe it's just a different way of grieving.
It could be. Dominick's distress is external. Thomas's processing might be more internal, less visible, but just as profound. It really highlights how grief isn't monolithic, especially with mental illness involved.
And even with Ray, Dominic is so fiercely protective of Thomas, almost in denial about Ray's obvious anger.
Yeah, and Ray's preoccupation with his fishing gear when Dominick tells him about their mother.
That's just a whole other level of emotional detachment, isn't it?
It really underscores the different ways the men in this family cope, or, well, fail to cope, with major emotional events.
And Ray's anger later about the newspaper portraying Thomas as an anti-war protester?
Right, his conservative views just clashing head-on with his son's actions. It complicates the family dynamic even more.
And his later questioning of Dominic, harsh questions about not reattaching Thomas's hand.
It feels almost belated, doesn't it? And accusatory, like this delayed, critical, fatherly concern.
It comes across as more about Ray's discomfort, maybe needing someone to blame, than real empathy for Thomas.
It's like a lifetime of emotional unavailability just rearing its head in that moment.
Moving beyond the immediate family crisis, the excerpts also give us this window into Dominic's own personal struggles, his relationships, particularly with Dessa.
Yes, that conflicted intimacy.
Their physical connection seems almost immediate, but then it's followed by this emotional withdrawal from Dominic, these intrusive thoughts about the hospital, Thomas's injury.
It's like he can't fully be present in the relationship, can he? His mind is constantly pulled back to his brother's trauma. Thomas's crisis just bleeds into everything.
His inability to sleep, waking up at 2:30 a.m., that recurring time.
It strongly suggests this deep-seated anxiety permeating all aspects of his life, even his most intimate moments.
And then you have that dehumanizing experience at the state hospital when he's trying to visit Thomas.
Oh, yeah, the bureaucracy.
The dismissive guards, the way Thomas's personal stuff, these small, almost pathetic remnants of his life are just dumped out and x-rayed.
Yeah, it really shows how the system just strips away dignity and individuality.
And Dominic's fierce protectiveness of those meager belongings is all he can offer his brother right then.
And these present-day struggles are constantly being colored by flashbacks to their childhood, aren't they?
We see those early signs of Thomas's difficulties, the pencil chewing, needing Ma's help.
Contrasted with Dominick's more impulsive actions, like deliberately breaking Thomas's eraser.
What did those early memories tell us about the foundation of their relationship?
These little snapshots are so telling. They hint at this dynamic that's been there from the beginning. Thomas may be more vulnerable, Dominick perhaps more outwardly destructive, even towards his own brother.
And then the memories of Ma's erratic behavior on the bus.
And Ray's harsh physical discipline towards Thomas.
That image of Ray taping Thomas's hands together is particularly disturbing. It's such a symbol of the oppressive, unstable environment they grew up in.
And then we're brought back to Dominick's present with Joy's therapy sessions, her revelations about her own past, her pregnancy.
Joy's own struggles add another layer of complexity, don't they? This potential for intimacy and responsibility clashing with Dominic's deep-seated anxieties and his, well, all-consuming focus on Thomas.
And his using Joy's pills to cope with his sleeplessness. It's a worrying sign of his own fragile state.
It really is. And looking back at Dominic's different reactions, Billy Covington's death as a teen versus his mother's profound grief later.
It hints at a developing, maybe slow understanding of his mother's emotional depth, and perhaps foreshadows his own future grief through Thomas.
Like he couldn't grasp the magnitude of loss until it became more personal, more immediate.
Yeah. And even Ma's plea for Dominick to be Thomas's roommate.
It speaks volumes about her awareness of Thomas's vulnerabilities and maybe her misguided perception of Dominic's strength.
And Dominick's resentful retort about his own hardships. It circles right back to that ingrained sense of competition, maybe even resentment between the brothers.
Fueled by their mother's perceived favoritism.
Right. And then Patty's casual assessment of their personalities. Dominick cool, Thomas Finke.
It's this external validation of those very roles they seem to have been assigned within the family.
And Dominick's subsequent sexual encounter tinged with thoughts of another woman.
It just underscores his emotional unavailability again, doesn't it? Even in moments of physical intimacy, his mind's elsewhere.
Unable to fully connect. And that assertiveness he displays with the intake worker at the psychiatric facility.
It's fueled by this desperate determination to get Thomas transferred.
But he's immediately met with bureaucratic obstacles, right?
Yeah.
Thomas's doctor being reassigned.
It just highlights the feeling of powerlessness he experiences trying to navigate this system.
The escalating frustration with the unhelpful staff, the unavailable supervisor, it all contributes to his sense of being trapped, unheard.
And that cynical view of the Psychiatric Review Board's decision, seeing it as mere public relations.
It speaks to his deep distrust of authority and the system, likely reinforced by past experiences.
Even the glimpse into the chaotic transport bus for patients.
It's such a stark contrast, isn't it, between the superficial lightheartedness and the underlying reality of their confinement.
A further indictment of the system's ability to truly care.
And then the news about Leo's unexpected role in a film.
It's this jarring shift in focus, yeah. Dominick is dealing with this immense crisis, and his cousin is off pursuing this seemingly frivolous thing. What does that highlight?
It highlights the different paths their lives have taken, I think. And maybe Dominick's feeling of being utterly alone in his struggles.
And that disturbing memory of childhood violence involving Ralph.
It's brief, but unsettling. A glimpse into the undercurrent of violence and instability in their youth, maybe foreshadowing a more complex relationship with Ralph later.
And the school's almost indifferent reaction to Penny Ann's death.
It speaks to a community perhaps desensitized to tragedy, or just unwilling to confront difficult truths.
That moment of feeling untwain, seeing Thomas in the kitchen.
Such a powerful image. It underscores Dominick's deep dependence on their shared identity, even if it's often fraught with conflict.
And then Ralph's unexpected reappearance suggests these figures from their past just keep resurfacing.
Their stories intertwine in ways Dominick might not even fully grasp yet.
And Ralph's defiant outburst in history class, questioning the narrative of progress, the treatment of Native Americans.
It's surprising, isn't it? Dominick, who we see as more outwardly rebellious, is taken aback by Ralph's attentiveness and his challenging of authority.
It hints at a shared undercurrent of questioning societal norms, even if Dominick is initially unaware of that connection.
And then Dell's crude behavior and those degrading nicknames.
The Dickey Bird brothers, a constant reminder of their perceived lack of individuality, the degrading work environment. Dominick's simmering resentment is palpable.
And that tense exchange between Ray and Ma about Thomas's homesickness in the Navy.
Ray's complete lack of empathy versus Ma's fierce protectiveness, so telling of their dynamic.
And Ray's controlling nature regarding Ma's potential job paints a picture of a very restrictive, maybe emotionally abusive, household.
And Ma's evasiveness about their real father, trying to normalize their family problems.
Suggests a history of secrets, a reluctance to confront painful truths.
Dominick's frustration with the cyclical nature of Thomas's treatment.
From history to biology and back again, it highlights Dominick's sense of futility, and maybe a valid questioning of the shifting approaches to mental illness.
And then those disturbing therapy tapes, potentially fabricated, about Ray's alleged abuse.
Dominick's visceral reaction, trying to stop them, underscores the unreliability of memory, the potential for distortion, and the deep-seated trauma permeating their family.
Raises that question of what's real and what's a product of a fractured mind.
But then, amidst all this darkness, you have that unexpected camaraderie during Grave Ball with Leo and Ralph.
It's this brief moment of shared levity, isn't it? This almost absurd game among gravestones, a temporary respite.
And Dominick's evolving sexual experiences with Dessa.
Contrasting his initial inexperience with a growing intensity, and Dessa's own past, her appreciation for his gentleness.
It reveals a different facet of Dominick, the capacity for tenderness, even amidst his turmoil.
And that complex interaction with Ray, offering crude advice about relationships.
It's a bizarrely human moment, isn't it? Blurring the lines of their antagonism.
Followed by the shift to shared drug use with Leo and Ralph at work, a further descent into unhealthy coping.
And then that violent confrontation with Leo over the comment about Ralph's sister.
Reveals Dominick's fierce loyalty to Ralph, hints at hidden knowledge of a past tragedy.
And Dominick's disturbing memory of that past sexual encounter, filled with anger, a need for dominance.
It's a deeply unsettling glimpse into Dominick's own capacity for harmful behavior, a darkness mirroring some of the violence he's witnessed.
His subsequent remorse, wanting to apologize to Dessa, suggests the flicker of conscience.
And that act of sabotaging Ma's music box.
Potentially jealousy of Thomas, resentment of Ma's sentimentality, another manifestation of that sibling rivalry and his own conflicts.
As things progress, the crises and external pressures just keep mounting on Dominick. That tense encounter with Thomas at the picnic.
Trying to get information about Ma and Ray highlights the breakdown in communication, the distance between them.
And then that uncomfortable visit to Dell's house to buy the car.
Yeah, steeped in exploitation, with Leo's inappropriate humor making it worse.
But then the unexpected revelation about Ralph and Dell.
Which Dominick uses as leverage. A morally ambiguous act exploiting someone's secret.
And Leo's exaggerated reaction, misinterpreting it as heroic blackmail, adds this darkly comedic twist.
And then the separate police interrogations about potential drug activity involving Ralph.
Leo's unreliability is immediately clear, and Dominick's caught trying to protect himself and Thomas under increasing pressure.
And that final outburst against Leo, fueled by frustration, defending Thomas's sanity, it's Dominick at his breaking point.
Throughout these excerpts, loss, memory, identity, they keep resurfacing. Dominick saying he's not religious.
After Ma's comment about sin, he directly links his loss of faith to past trauma, especially losing his daughter.
And that disturbing dream, sex with Angie, hiding it from Dessa, watched by Thomas.
A potent symbol of his complex guilt, his tangled inner life.
But then moments of strained reconciliation, like with Leo after the near arrest.
Marked by partial payment, unspoken tensions, eased slightly by shared experiences, and Leo's surprising acting gig.
And Dominick's plea to Lisa Sheffer about Thomas's mistreatment at Hatch.
Seeking safety assurances, juxtaposed with that trivial phone message from Joy, highlights his divided attention, his priorities.
Even Morticia's desperate calls fade against his preoccupation with Thomas. Trying to maintain normalcy with Henry's painting job feels almost futile.
And then the disheartening outcome of Thomas's hearing. Dr. Patel abstaining. Thomas detained longer straight. Dominick's frustration is palpable.
And Thomas's confused statement about needing to be incorporated.
Reflecting his fragmented state, met with Dominick's protective embrace, a powerful image of their bond.
And that tense argument with Joy, fueled by his stress, reveals the strain on their relationship.
Dominick's impulsive drive to Dessa's studio.
Followed by that internal monologue of self-doubt, resignation suggests a deep fear of abandonment, mirroring his anxieties about Thomas.
And his detached state after the hearing, focusing on practical things like truck insurance, a coping mechanism.
Even the awkward interaction with Leo and his father at the dealership, underlying tensions, Leo's bad jokes, but then Leo's worry about job losses.
Fleeting moments of connection amidst the dysfunction.
And Dominick's defensive reaction to the insurance adjuster, the anger and grief simmering just below.
And then Ray's arrival. Typical abrasive banter, then those direct accusatory remarks about Joy and Dominick's efforts.
It's Ray's way, critical yet also present, in his flawed way.
And the memory of their different ways of acknowledging Ray's birthday. Dominick's grudging compliance versus Thomas's heartfelt gestures.
And the ritual of Mass, Dominick eating Halloween candy in church, a small act of defiance against Ray's rigidity.
And that flashback to Ray punishing Thomas in front of churchgoers. The public shame underscoring the volatile environment.
Then we get into hallucinations, shifting realities with Dominick's terrifying vision.
Smothering Thomas, then the hospital conversation with Miguel discussing hallucinations. What's real, blurring the lines of Dominick's own sanity.
And Miguel's explanation of how the mind protects itself during trauma, linking it to Henry Rude's suicide and Dominick's injuries.
Offers a potential explanation. And Miguel trying to connect, sharing his life, asking about Dominick's daughter.
Leading to Dominick's blunt revelation of Angela's death, a rare moment of vulnerability, met with Miguel's unexpected sympathy.
Even Lisa Sheffer's somber visit. Confirming Thomas's continued detention, her frustration evident, her disagreement with Dr. Hume.
And then the arrival of the Shiva statue, Dr. Patel's card. Linking destruction and renovation, suggesting acceptance.
The awkwardness between Sheffer and Joy underscores the tangled relationships.
And Joy's physical distress, pregnancy, stress, her reassurance trying to shift focus to the baby.
Met with Dominick's inability to say, I love you, highlighting the chasm between them.
And then Joy's devastating revelation, the vasectomy, past marriage, Angela's death, a huge secret withheld.
Completely changes their landscape. Joy's recorded message, expressing her feelings, the uncertain future marks a potential end.
And then we dive into Domenico's manuscript.
revealing his prejudices, controlling nature, strained relationships shedding light on the potential roots of the family's struggles.
His pursuit of success, distrust of obstacles, establishing a pattern of ambition, maybe ruthlessness.
And his complex relationship with Proserpine. Suspicion, control, then companionship. His reaction to her pregnancy hints at a history of difficult, maybe abusive relationships with women.
And Domenico, trying to understand Ignazia's grief, realizing her past love, adds another layer: hidden passions, unspoken sorrows.
Dominick's own reflections on it. Initial hope for his father, growing unease with Domenico's character, a journey of disillusionment.
And realizing a potential connection between Domenico's treatment of women and his own fears. A moment of self-awareness.
Domenico's account of Prosperine's stories. Disbelief, fascination, the lead-poisoned water, Salvi's death, Prosperine's escape, this almost fantastical element.
And Dominick trying to get an HIV test for Thomas. Frustrated by Dr. Hume, planning to bring his own doctor, shows his protectiveness, distrust of the establishment.
Lisa Sheffer's subsequent call. The guard assaulting Thomas, the hospital controlling the narrative, confirms Dominick's fears about his brother's safety.
In the aftermath of Thomas's release, Dominick tries to reconnect.
His efforts to celebrate met with Thomas's muted reactions, his desire to go to the falls. He's profoundly changed.
And Dominick's overwhelming sense of loss after Thomas's death. Carrying a dead part of himself, the symbolic return to the falls with Ray underscores the profound impact.
Even the dream of being Thomas, feeling release, reunion with Ma, highlights Dominick's deep identification, his longing for peace.
The childhood memories of Ma's stories, the bunny, Thomas, and the monkey, Dominick, foreshadowing their roles, perceived favoritism.
And Thomas's perspective as a child. Confusion, anger, distorted understanding of death, insight into the brother Dominick struggles to grasp.
Returning to Domenico's narrative.
His internal struggle, brothel visits versus strict morals, reveals his hypocrisy, complexity.
But his interaction with Father Guglielmo, defensiveness giving way to confession, Mass suggests potential for change, reconciliation.
The shared meal with Ignazia and Proserpine, a fragile peace.
Domenico's connection to his mother through songs, affection for Concertina, hinting at a softening.
Back in Dominick's present, that final call with Joy. Her distant tone, Dominick destroying her number signifies the end, another loss.
His overwhelming grief. The profound question of identity without his twin, the central crisis.
The funeral scene.
Red and white tulips avoiding the cemetery filled with graves, reminding him of losses.
His internal critique of the priest's platitudes. Ray's impatience, the Grim Reaper image, dark, cynical commentary on death rituals.
Dominick's breakdown in his grandfather's backyard. Place of past solace for Domenico, realizing his lifelong search for a father figure, poignant self-awareness.
And Ray's unexpected crying at the funeral. Stark contrast to his stoicism, triggering Dominick's defense. And sudden understanding of Thomas's act at the falls, profound insight.
His own symbolic step forward, a small gesture towards healing.
Lisa Sheffer's supportive words, pride in his therapy, a glimmer of hope.
More of Domenico's volatility, violent reaction to disrespect, fierce pride.
Dr. Patel's gentle guidance, reminding Dominick of his goals, acknowledging progress.
Domenico's deep distrust of Americani, reflecting immigrant challenges, prejudice.
The unresolved mystery of Ignazia's death. Rumors. Constantina's silence lasting impact of trauma. Secrets.
Dominick visiting Ray after surgery. Ray's frailty, Dominick's thought. Pass at your own risk, complex mix of resentment, grudging affection.
Dominick's final devastating realization. Thomas and his grandmother starved to death in different prisons. The haunting question about Papa.
That raw moment of honesty between Dominick and Ray. Acknowledging Ray's temper, its impact, but also his presence. Ray's admissions of failure, his compliment to Ma, surprisingly human.
The final encounter with Joy. Awkward, distant, her unwell appearance, Dominick unable to connect.
And the arrival of that disturbing letter, insinuating malice behind Joy's pregnancy, Dominick's reaction, the HIV test decision, the agonizing wait.
His dark contemplation of divine retribution. The cruel irony of facing a disease he can't defend against.
Dominick reflecting on the manuscript, initial hopes, fear of Domenico's abuse, realizing Thomas might have known the secret Ralph Drinkwater as their half-brother.
The shocking revelation of shared parentage. Dominick's bewildered question to Ralph. How do you become a Wequannock? Trying to grasp this new connection.
A brief memory of Dominick and Dessa at a basketball game. Shared happiness before struggles. His heartfelt proposal, bittersweet reminder.
And finally, Wally Lamb's acknowledgments. Emphasizing collaborative storytelling, art illuminating life.
So, wrapping up from these excerpts, you've really witnessed this profound, often painful bond between Dominic and Thomas.
Yeah, a bond just irrevocably shaped by this challenging family history and the enduring impact of mental illness. You've gained, I think, a deeper understanding of Dominick's internal struggle
His complex, often fractured relationships and the sheer weight of inherited trauma.
and the persistent narrative threads around Domenico's manuscript. They offer these glimpses into long-buried secrets and the cyclical nature of these deep-seated family struggles.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Consider the powerful ways family secrets, these unspoken histories, can shape individual lives and relationships across generations. How might Dominick's evolving understanding of his grandfather's story, especially coupled with that staggering revelation about his half-brother, ultimately impact his own sense of self? His capacity to navigate life moving forward after losing Thomas and the end of his relationship with Joy.
Yeah.
This deep dive, as comprehensive as it's been into these excerpts, really does offer just a glimpse into a much larger, profoundly moving story. It leaves a lot of threads for you, the listener, to continue exploring on your own.